Hi everyone, Stacy here with I Advise College Recruiting. And this week's tip of the week will answer the question, what is the House versus NCAA settlement that you have been hearing about in the news? And how will that impact college sports? And how will that impact future recruiting? So first I want to go ahead and give you a brief and general background to this settlement that has just kind of hit the news. Um, so there was a lawsuit where former student athletes from the pre-NIL era who felt that they deserved to share in profits. So they brought a lawsuit to the NCAA and the universities. And this deal that they came up with covers about 3 antitrust cases dating back to 2016. So this has been in the works for a while. Congress had taken note. They were paying attention due to the antitrust situations, and Congress is pressing for a solution. And that led to the NCAA and the Power Five conferences coming to this settlement, this agreement. They just submitted the final details to a judge for certification. It will take some time for the judge to certify this settlement. Could be a few months, or some say it might not even happen until early 2025. So the judge can send it back to the drawing board if there's bits and pieces that she does not agree to. So it's not settled yet. But that is the gist of the background to the House versus NCAA settlement. So, what are the details to this settlement? This is what everybody wants to know, and this is what has been gracing your news. So, the first big aspect to the settlement was the 2.5 plus billion dollars to be paid out to these former athletes over a 10-year period. To be paid out by universities and by the NCAA. So, that's the first part. The second detail is kind of a groundbreaking new revenue sharing program. It introduces this. Basically, D1 universities will be allowed or permitted to pay $21.5 million plus a little bit more to its athletes annually. This is brand new. The third detail is that the settlement expands scholarships to full rosters. So there's some more to know about that. I'll go into that in a little bit. Also, scholarship restrictions, like old scholarship restrictions, are now replaced by a roster limit, and each sport has been given a new roster limit. So every student athlete is permitted to receive an athletic scholarship, where that wasn't the case before. And the final detail is that partial scholarships are permitted in all sports, making essentially each sport an equivalency sport. And that will do away with what was previously known as a head count sport. For example, like women's gymnastics was a head count sport. They were allowed 12 full athletic scholarships on a team, and there was no roster limits. But now each sport has a roster limit. Each athlete on the roster is permitted to receive an athletic scholarship, and the universities can dispense those scholarships how they see fit. So, after hearing all that, you might be asking yourself, oh my goodness, so many changes. When does this begin? So, in the details, they're saying that this revenue sharing can start as early as the fall of 2025, which to me seems very fast and right around the corner. Another aspect of the settlement is that there will be arbitration to enforce disputes, and some arbitrators will be selected prior to a final hearing. And the NCAA will enforce that spending cap. Another thing is they want NIL collectives to be held to certain standards that remain under like a business model, basically saying that they involve valid business purposes related to promotion, endorsement of goods and services to the general public, and really eliminate the pay for play, recruitment, and retention of a player. So that's also written within this settlement. And one thing I need to know, and it's important for you to know, is that schools that are not defendants in this case. So those would be members of the Group of Five, the FCS, non-football playing D1s. They are bound to the roster limits, reporting system, enforcement mechanism only if they choose to share revenue with their athletes, meaning they can opt out of the new revenue sharing system. So time will tell to see what schools in the that fall under that category, under the non-defendant category, what they choose to do and how they decide to move forward. So within this new proposed system, the commissioners finalized new roster limits for each sport. So a couple of examples I listed here, but the whole list is in an article that I will link in the details to this video. So for example, acrobatics and tumbling used to have a scholarship limit of 14 under the old system. In the new system, it would have a roster limit of 55. Baseball. So under the old system, they had a scholarship limit of 11.7 scholarships. Under the new system, they would have a roster limit of 34. So on and so forth. I've listed some here that you can take a look at. But again, that full list would be available in the details of this video. So it's important to keep in mind that with this settlement also comes a lot of questions. I have questions, college coaches have questions, athletic directors have questions. So there's many things that are still unclear. And Title IX is one of those things. So right now, many people are still looking maybe for some federal guidance on how Title IX will apply. I've read that any increase in a scholarship or roster in a men's sport would need to be replicated in a women's sport. So I suspect and hope that there will be clarification in the future to ensure that Title IX will still be implemented in with this new revenue sharing system. So what are the implications of this settlement? And to answer that question in general, it will depend on whether or not a university is well funded. So the Power Five conferences, this will affect them very differently than how it will affect a non-Power Five or non-Power conference school. So if you're a lower D1 that has a stricter budget, they may look at potential tiering system where they're funneling more dollars to programs and maybe taking dollars away from others. So this could affect staffing, salary. Some are worried about a reduction of money to Olympic sports, such as swimming and diving, or any other sport that basically generates little to no revenue. Another thing to note is that this does not settle the issue of should a college athlete be considered an employee. Right now, that question is being brought out to the courts and has not been decided upon. There is some language within this settlement that hints towards maybe that possibility, but that this question about college athletes being considered employees is still to be determined. And then finally, there's a lot of chatter about football. So the roster size of football decreased from 120 to 105. And a lot of college coaches are saying that this could potentially do away with walk-on athletes for the sport of football. And that will force the college coaches to maybe change their practice strategy. They will have athletes on scholarship perhaps that won't travel. So there might be an increased amount of discontent because a scholarship athlete, expects to travel and expects to play. Some are worried that this will increase the use of the portal, the transfer portal, even further. So these are just some implications that people are discussing, talking about, worried about. Again, we'll all have to be patient and just see how it all plays out. So we just unpacked a lot of information. So what do you as a parent or a recruit need to take away? So first, I think it would be very important for you moving forward to understand whether or not the schools on your target list are opting into the new system or not. That is a fantastic question. And you might need to be patient. Some college coaches may not have yet decided how they are going to move forward. It will be important for you to remember that the main recruiting principles still apply here. So a recruit must have the athletic skill set that matches the program that they are interested in. They must have be up to the level or better than the skill set of the athletes on within that program already. And recruit must have solid academics, a high GPA, and work really hard on their test scores. A recruit must try to have the correct exposure, be willing to do research, and build relationships with coaches. These are, basic recruiting fundamentals that will not change. One thing to keep in mind is that while more scholarships available seems great, and it might open up opportunities for more student athletes out there, but it will be very dependent upon each school and what they have as far as their budget and their funding and their revenue. So every school is kind of limited to to what they can do. So the amount of money for some D1s, that may not change, but it might be dispersed differently. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And then finally, I think as a parent and as a recruit, it's always important to remember to control what you can control. So you can't control any of these details, but you can stay apprised to the new information as it comes and ask really good questions. Make sure that you are, have great work ethic and you're putting forth your best efforts in your practicing, in your academics, and in all of your recruiting activities.